Sangye Jedang Soye Shana Na Chanjo Bado Dane Yasu Dage Shenye Gebe Sana Gedrola Bez Sangye Sangye Jedang Soye Shana Na Chanjo Bado Dane Yasu Dage Shenye Gebe Sana Gedrola Bez Sangye Sangye Shedang Soye Shana Na Chanjo Ba Dane Gyasu Dage Shenye Gebe Sana Gedrola Bez Sangye Chanze Wadon Jeje Shaba Daje Soyera Jeje Zawai Gewa Jose Dage Jesan Badam Je Dage Chanjo Jema Zaje Beje Joje Medo Jare Ranishi Ninde Gemba Sangye Jindo Mede Vea Yendo Genanda Shinla Jeva Semje Nanye Samba Loye Jera Jeda Jejun Demo Deva Yeshege Gor Gorodo 최den도 강의들로 제번보다는 원래부터 다들 주변 이시는 저버서 많은 게 담아달라 처음에 표준서바 방가래 초리좀 봐서 이게 비를 전주서 시도로 마음에 제배셔라서 시작하라 헤르비는 제배로 뒤제는 너무 자외돼 못 끊었어 그 유를 모자라 상상을 반대 도시 상황을 운전하고 남아가면 기고 그 이종의 시집에 이동해서 吃了东西吃不了，你最近别这样子，那就自己随便就是咱们投机用完了之后，关键在那么多其他的就是别没得，个人行为过来就是，各种都因为做啥那他妈，这那不灵验，参谋里啊，成绩这里选赢。
First of all, I would like to wish you all Tashi Dilek and offer you my greetings. Yesterday, I spoke a bit about how the Dharma becomes the path. When we say the Dharma becomes the path, that means that if we do not have the stable intention of a wish for emancipation in our mind streams, then whether we are taking vows or practicing virtue or listening, contemplating, and meditating, it does not become a method to achieve liberation, or it does not become Dharma. But if you even give the virtue of giving a morsel of food to another sentient being, if it is imbued with bodhicitta, becomes a cause for achieving Buddhahood. And so I think this is how we should understand it. Thus, each of the three vehicles has their own way of explaining how the Dharma becomes the path. But if we summarize it, then in terms of the Great Enlightenment, there are two aspects. The way becomes the provisional path, and the way becomes the ultimate path to Buddhahood. So these are the two types that are taught. But in this text on the four dharmas, the way in which it becomes the path to liberation has already been described in the passage that teaches the faults in samsara. So this passage primarily teaches how Dharma becomes the Mahayana path. In particular, Gampopa's thought emphasizes the tradition taught in the White Lotus Sutra, and specifically the Mahayana sutras that teach there is only one path ultimately. And so the way we know this is that meaning or that point is explained in the introduction to the jewel ornament. And likewise, also in Flo Lyak's notes on this root text of the Four Dhammas, it is said that in terms of the development of an individual's faculties, the path is taught as three variables in the expedient. So it's saying that this is the expedient meaning, that it is taught in three vehicles, but in actuality, there's only one path. And so the commentary written by Laya also says, in the definitive meaning, there's only one vehicle as a phrase that should be added. This point was explained at length in the White Lotus of True Dharma. And then he also gives many reasons and gives many citations about this, but I will not explain them now. So in brief, the way the Dharma becomes the path described in this passage is taught as it appears in other works of Gampopa. He describes how to establish the basis for the Mahayana path by imbuing it with a relative bodhicitta, and also how imbuing it with ultimate bodhicitta makes it into the actual path that severs the roots of clinging to the truth. And so that is how it is explained. And so among that all, and also there's Lama Shang Yudra, or Lam Saba, who says that saying the Dharma must become the path means that even if the Dharma becomes an antidote for the afflictions and tames your own mind stream, if loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta do not take root in your being, it does not become the Mahayana path. You have only achieved the path of the listeners and Pratyeka Buddhas, not that of unexcelled enlightenment. Thus, no matter what, you must do whatever you can so that loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta take root in your being. As this says, fundamentally, whether it's Mahayana or not, it comes down to the distinction taught between the distinction between the foundation vehicle and the Mahayana. It comes down to whether you have the Mahayana bodhicitta resolve. And that comes down to whether great compassion has taken root in your being. And so that must be roused through the loving kindness, the seeing beings as attractive. And so in this way, we need to train our mind in stages. It doesn't, relative bodhicitta doesn't suddenly arise all at once. So in order to, I'd like to elaborate on this topic of loving kindness and share some thoughts of my own. I think I got stayed up a little bit late last night. During this time, I've only been getting only 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. I've been working too much, so I don't feel like I have much energy today. But as you can all see behind, did you see the bamboo behind me? I think that maybe it has, you might think that it's just like, you might think it's like the movie Kung Fu Panda. Sometimes I think, they say, you look like Kung Fu Panda. When they say I look like Kung Fu Panda, I think that it's, if I have the bamboo behind me, then you might think that actually the real living Kung Fu Panda is right in front of you. So generally, when we say loving kindness and compassion, loving kindness means the thought of wishing others happiness, and compassion means the thought of wishing others to be free of suffering, as most of you know. But the understanding of loving kindness and compassion, the Mahayana, is not just understanding the words. It is a far vaster and more profound understanding of the meaning. I think that loving kindness and compassion, connected to the way we actually view and the way we actually see other sentient beings. And the meaning of this is that, like, for example, is ordinarily we have a relatively simplistic way of having sympathy for other sentient beings, which is that we just feel sympathy for them. And so primarily, is looking outside at other people's situations and suffering. That's the type of thought that it is. And when that thought grows stronger, then it becomes an intention to share in other people's empathy, of wishing to share in others' joys and sorrows, or empathy. And what that means is, and so that means that we bring others' suffering into our own experience. And it's like becomes the intention to put ourselves in their position. But loving kindness and compassion aren't really just feeling sympathy for others. And they're not just bringing their suffering into your own experience. I think that there is an even more profound understanding, an even more profound meaning. And this is because loving kindness and compassion are not just feelings or ways of thinking. They aren't just sort of attitudes. They're prajna, or the recognition of what the ultimate critical points are, and that arises, and so that become the conduct and the practice that arise out of those. And so what is the way to recognize, and so what is the manner that we need to recognize this? It is to recognize that we and others are inseparable, or that we and others are equal. So we humans, from ancient times until today, we know one way of projecting names, labels, of designating and labeling things. And that is to call the aggregates that we are able to control, or this body, me. When there is someone else, when there are aggregates or bodies before our own mind that we are not able to control, we call that other. And this way of designating or projecting labels Is this something that we naturally know? It's not. It's something that other people teach us. In this way of dividing or calling us me, you, and them, and so forth, is something that we humans have invented for many different reasons. And one reason why we can say this is that in this earth, there are some ancient languages where there are not clear words that mean I or you. There are such languages. And in terms of that terms, when we think about the ultimate way of looking at it, or another way of thinking about it, is there such a great distance as we think between me and you and them? Actually, there's no way to really separate others. For another way we can think about it, when we say me, you, and them, is there such a great distance between you and me and other? There's not such a great gap between us. Not only is there no great gap between us, but me, you, and them, we're actually all equal and all the same taste. When we think about it that way, and we think about the nature in this way, then between me and all humans, or between me and all sentient beings, there's not such a division or gap as we might think that there is. Just because I'm not able to control someone else's body does not mean that it can be categorically determined that they and I are different. Nor is it necessary to think that, because there's not really any evidence or any incontrovertible reason at all of you and me being different, or of they and me being different, being unrelated entities, or of us being single and independent. This is just a projection of thinking that that individual beings are single and independent. We make it up conceptually. It is not true. It is not the nature of things that they are true. It is not true in fact. But we are so habituated to thinking in that way, projecting it in that way, that we think it's fitting and appropriate. And for that reason, we don't even feel, it's difficult for us to even have any misgivings or any doubt that that way of thinking might not be exactly how it is. To give an example of this, on this earth, there are a couple hundred nations, aren't there? And each of them has borders. When we talk about a border, they were invented by humans. And people had to think hard and work hard and think hard in order to invent them. But if we look at the natural environment, there are no national boundaries and no borders in terms of the natural environment. When a tree grows, it doesn't look to see if there's a national border. When birds fly in the sky, they don't have any borders. Bugs who dig into the earth, they don't have borders. Even in the end, even with people, if you do not explain to them that a border is such and such, and show them this, explain to them what a nation is, they won't understand what a border is. Similarly, between you and me, between myself and other, there's no natural distinction or no true division. But we make up names and project them onto things and make up the divisions. So if in actual fact there is no division between us and others, in between ourselves and others, we say, well, actually, externally, our bodies are dissimilars. Our clothes are different. Our thoughts aren't the same. And the way we act are all dissimilar. And so you wonder how that could be. This occurs because we have really deep imprints of dualism. For example, because of the way our coarse physical support, the body, was formed, the way the body of flesh and blood was formed, we have the opportunity to enjoy sensory pleasures. But it prevents our consciousnesses also from moving about without impediment. It obstructs us from accessing the full capacity of our consciousness. When we die and are in the bardo, the bodily support of the body in the bardo is like a subtle body or a mental body. That can't obstruct the capacity of consciousness. So wherever we think we're to go, we can go without any obstruction. So that's what it's like in the bardo. And so for that reason, you have a subtle body or even a mental body. That can't be impeded. So it's different. That mental body is different when it's living. And so there are fewer impediments to being able to bring out the full capacity of consciousness. And so for that reason, it is said to be easier to recognize our own nature in the bardo than when we are living, as many lamas have said. So in brief, the loving kindness and compassion explained in Mahayana, if we talk about them the way people in sort of a colloquial way, is we don't think about other people, others. We think that there are parts of ourselves, or that they are us. And it means thinking that there's no distinction between ourselves and others. And that's the type of attitude or the type of thought we need to carry or bring. For example, some great individuals are actually able to take other suffering upon themselves. So they can, like when other people are feeling illness, they can actually transfer that to themselves. They have that capacity. And the main reason why they're able to do that, if we think about it, of course, there are many reasons, but the main reason, within the expanse or within the depth of their realization, they see that they and others are equal. And I think that is why they can do it. And so that is how I see it. So in brief, so in the depths of their hearts, they don't make any divisions between self and others. So without it being mixed with self-interest for even an instant, and they're entirely free of attachment and fixation. And so for that reason, they are naturally able to act for the welfare of other sentient beings. And so that being the case, we often say that we need to cherish others more than ourselves. And when we need to say cherishing others more than ourselves, this doesn't mean that we need to be some great hero who sacrifices everything, who jumps into the fray first. That's not what it's saying. It's as I have already said. We have a mistaken way of thinking. And we need to cleanse it of its stains and know the actual nature of what it is, in fact. That's the most important point. For example, if you have a picture or a drawing that you've drawn it up, and if you roll it up and you put it away for a long time someplace else, then one day when you unroll it, then it just rolls itself back up. So at that time, if you roll it up the other way, then when you unroll it again, it'll be flexible. It'll lay flat. So like in that example, we all have a very strong habit of thinking that there's a great gap between ourselves and others, or that we are separate and distinct and in control. Since that is so strong, it's easy to feel heartfelt, affectionate thoughts for yourself. And for your close friends or relatives, where you think of them as being close, it's also fairly easy with them to develop compassion and affection. But with other than them, it is extremely difficult to have such a loving thought for other sentient beings as you have for yourself. So for that reason, when we are training our minds, we first train ourselves in love for ourselves, the wish for emancipation, and then we train in love for others. And then we train in the equality of self and other, then in exchanging oneself for others, and then in thinking of ourselves and others as being inseparable. And so we train our mind in stages. And so this softens or hardens characters. And the ropes of thinking that we are single, or the bonds of thinking that we are single and in control, get looser and looser. In the end, just like the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we will be able to realize that we and others are all equal. And I think that we can do this. If we think about it from the perspective of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so what is it like for them? In terms of the perspective of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, there's probably no distinction between us and them. We become like a part of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And I think that that is how they think. Thus, when Buddhas and Bodhisattvas act for the benefit of others, they don't have attachment to anyone, and they treat everyone completely equally. Likewise, when their qualities of abandon and realization reach such a high level, they transcend the coarse aggregates in the body of flesh and blood. And so their realization has transcended the body, and so their consciousness dwells in an unimpeded, unobstructed way. And so because of that, the connection between us and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas primarily comes from a connection of the mind, from faith and longing and so forth. So normally we need to make a connection to someone, so we have to speak. But for the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, you don't need to talk. Generally, we recite orally, and they can hear that. But the main thing is that whatever thought occurs to us, or whatever motivation we have, the moment we have it, they immediately know it. And they immediately know it clearly the moment they arise. Thus, normally, when we're reciting prayers and aspirations or whatever, our minds and our mouths have to be together. As if they aren't together, if we pretend, if we try to be clever and pretend, then we're only fooling ourselves, and we can fool other people, but we aren't able to fool the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. The reason is because they know it all very clearly. And so that being so, at any time, we must have pure motivations and faith and devotion. This is very important. When we pray and supplicate the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, this is extremely important. And that is the reason why. When we're reciting prayers and aspirations, what we're thinking about, are pure or not, is important. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas don't look to see who's offering the biggest stick of incense or the largest lamp. They don't think, whose prayers are they listening to? They don't first think to that, who are the VIPs, or, They don't think about offering refuge to the VIPs first. That's not how they think. In the actual matter of fact, whoever is praying for them, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas know the hopes and prayers of all sentient beings. The moment the beings make those, they don't make any distinctions of who is prayed first or who is most important. In other words, they know all the situations of whether you're happy or sad immediately at the same time. And so there's no distinction of earlier, before, or closer and more distant. So if you think about it in terms of the bodhisattvas and bodhisattvas, not only is there no distinction between us and them, they also don't see any distinction between us and other sentient beings. And so that being so, they always look at us as if we were family. They view us as family members. They never see us as outsiders or non-family. But we don't believe strongly enough. And so we think of the Bodhis and Bodhisattvas as being outside. We separate them out and put them on a high pedestal far off. And that's how we identify them. And once you've put them on a pedestal and far away, we get the feeling that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are distant from us. But in actuality, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas accompany us like a bodhisattva in the shadow. They're never apart from us, even for an instant. They're not so extremely far away in some, akanishta or other pure realm. This was something that we need to look at a telescope to see. You had to get a huge telescope to look at the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. That's not what they're like. In brief, the loving kindness and compassion as taught about in the Mahayana is a presentation on that sort of a presentation of that sort of a deep and profound and ultimate nature. If we can know what the situation and the way things are is by penetrating the critical points. If we are able to know them, then say, may all sentient beings be happy, or may all sentients be free of suffering is no longer a mere aspiration. It's not just a dream. It's something we can actually do. To give an example. For example, if we want to make ourselves happy, if we do something that we like, are we able to do it? We think it's possible. We don't think that we aren't able or that it is impossible, right? And so for that reason, so on that day when we are able to see that we and all sentient beings are inseparable, you'll have that same sort of thought for all sentient beings. And so that day when you have that thought, you say that, saying, may all sentient beings may be happy, may they all be free of suffering, becomes something that you feel like you can do, not something that is just a mere hope. And so that I think is enough for about the Dharma becomes the path for now. I did think that there are some things I had to say about the topic of emptiness and so forth and the lack of reality, but I haven't had enough time, and so I'm not able to share them now. So now I'd like to speak about the way the path dispels the confusion. And so I'm just saying something in order to not completely omit the text. And so what it says in this text is, when you understand that, the path dispels confusion. First, meditating on impermanence dispels the confusion of fixation on this life. Meditating on karmic cause and effect dispels the confusion of wrong views. Meditating on the defects of samsara dispels the confusion of attachment to the samsara. Meditating on loving kindness and compassion dispels the confusion of the foundation vehicle. Meditating on phenomena being like dreams and illusions dispels the confusion of attachment to things being real. In general, the higher dispel the confusions of the lower. So generally, so this way that the path dispels confusion can be joined with the path of the greater individual, or it can be joined with the paths of the three types of individuals, or it can be joined with the path of mantra. So there are three different ways. But here, it is taught in terms of joining it to the three types of the individuals. Now, all the main points, I've already explained all the main points. And so I don't think there's any reason to repeat them now. And so that is how it is now. And so that is like our first session. Now, of course, there's more time, but in the second session, I still got a little bit of preparation, a bit of rush to prepare that. And so that second session, we've got a little bit of time, right? And so for that reason, the second session, so what time is it? Oh, what?
다른 추주 뉘다 체 뉘다 까마 숨섭게를 도와.
So now it's 7:38 in India, right? So it says 7:38 in India. So at 8:30 Indian time, we'll go to do this again. So we will reconvene at 8:38 because I've got some work to do. So at 8:30 p.m. Indian time, and so it's difficult for me to say exactly when this will be in other terms. But I think that will be probably at 4 p.m. in Europe, at 10 a.m. in the U.S. Please check these times. In the eastern coast of the U.S. and Canada, and at 7 a.m. on the west coast of U.S. and Canada. Please check the times. We will reconvene at 8:30 Indian Standard Time.